Many people in Alaska rely on salmon fishing to support their family. The population of salmon is changing due to many reasons. Fishing is important for many of the locals that live there. Decline of fish populations can lead to economic hardships for fishermen and the communities that rely on the fishing for their livelihoods. Additionally, it affects the food chain and ecosystems' health. Many people in Alaska rely on salmon fishing to support their family. The population of salmon is changing due to many reasons. What is being done to help the populations of crab and salmon recover? Restrictions have been put in place to regain numbers of both crabs and salmon. This affects the economy and people who live off of the fish. Finding a balance between conservation and needs is very important. The restrictions have affected the local economies, particularly those in rural areas where fishing is the primary source of income. Fishing restrictions are a response of dwindling fish populations. The aim is to protect the fish and to allow them to repopulate. However, this has serious financial implications for those who depend on fishing. We need to understand the importance of conservation efforts as well as economic needs of the people. Who is being affected? Many of the indigenous people are being affected. They rely on subsistence fishing and cultural practices. They are facing greater hardships due to the restrictions of the fishing. The indigenous populations often have deep cultural ties to fishing and rely on it for both their food as well as cultural practices. These restrictions have disrupted many of their practices and the way of life that they have in their communities. Addressing environmental justice involves recognizing and mitigating the disproportionate impacts on indigenous people and ensuring their voices are heard in the decision-making process. Besides that, in science, we're learning about the habitats and life cycles, and as well as where the migration of these salmon go to. This is all important while we're studying life science. In the terms of STEM, we also have math standards that are also important while we study the population of the salmon and the effect of the conservation efforts. So statistical methods and understanding trends on data using bar graphs and line graphs can help students study these, as well as learning about mean, medium, and mode, as well as standard deviation. Mathematical models stimulate real-world systems to help predict outcomes. The use of developing models to predict the population dynamics, migration patterns, and effects of various environmental factors of fishing practices. The math is also used for algebraic equations and differential equations to model fish population growth, the carrying capacity, and impacts of fishing pressure. In technology, some of the things that can be used to study these fish are the use of satellite imagery, drones, and underwater sensors to monitor salmon habitats, track migration patterns, and assess environmental conditions. Some other technologies, such as GPS tracking and environmental sensors to gather accurate data on salmon populations and their habitats, are being used as well. In STEM, engineering is thought to be overlooked a lot in schools. So engineering standards that could be taught in here are restoring and enhancing natural habitats, designing and implementing habitat restoration projects such as building fish ladders or enhancing the zones where they go, or improving conditions for salmon spawning and migration, applying principles of civic and environmental engineering to create sustainable solutions that benefit salmon populations and their habitats. Engineering practices can also promote sustainable resources, develop and use technologies that minimize bycatch, the capture of non-target species, and reduce environmental impact of fishing gear. They can integrate engineering design principles to create fishing gear and techniques that ensure long-term sustainability of salmon fisheries. Why it's important to me as an avid fisher person, I want to make sure our waters are protected for the health and future of the fish, and that means being involved, maintaining a healthy ecosystem, making sure we're not tracking pollutants to other waters, making sure our fishing gear is clean, making sure the habitat needs to be restored. Maybe it's building a dam that has previously been destroyed, or maybe the beavers were moved, or building ladders for the fish's survival and their the likelihood for them to migrate and to go upstream to spawn.